West Coast Lost Boy.
Welcome to BAM Fight Club. I'm Colby, this is Fern, and we're previewing UFC Fight Night, Makhachev vs. Green, which will be taking place this Saturday, February 26th. Prelim starting at 1 p.m. Pacific on ESPN Plus, main card at 4 p.m. on ESPN Plus. And let's get going, because Fern, I can't wait to talk about this main event here. So let's start with the first fight of the night between Armen Petrosian and Gregory Rodriguez. Petrosian coming in as a plus 135 underdog. Rodriguez coming in as a negative 160 favorite. How'd you break down this fight?
This is a very exciting fight. I hadn't really heard of either one of these fighters till I watched it. Petrosian is coming from Dana White Contender Series. Rodriguez as well. He has been on LFA, was the middleweight champion. So starting off with Petrosian, interesting the connections that they have on these undercards now where they're connected to the main event fighter. So Petrosian actually at one point went and trained in Dagestan with, Khabib and Makhachev and all of them. And you could really see it in the fight that I saw, which was against Kolev. So he trained in Dagestan for this fight and came in underweight actually, which was kind of interesting. He was like 4 or 5 pounds under the weight limit, but right away you see he takes controls and threw kicks against Kolev, who was a highly regarded wrestler, and you could see that in his stance and his approach in the grappling. It was commentated on like a couple of times that Petrosian's style is to actually let people kind of bring the grappling to him and him show that he can kind of wrestle through and break down, keeps his composure, attacks the hands, kind of that Dagestani style, always controlling the hands in the grappling and the clinches, and would separate, break the body lock and throw a knee, break the body lock, throw a punch, and elbow. Defensively wrestled, which was super interesting to watch, and, I've seen people get pinned against the cage and they always try to turn. He was maneuvering and clinching and throwing strikes, working nonstop the whole time, circling out, and was able to land a body knee, wasn't afraid of the takedown. And then as soon as he separated, it was just, he needed like 1 or 2 feet, threw a head kick, was able to rock him, and then was able to finish up with combos. He throws 3 or 4 punch combos every single time. He's apparently a highly regarded kickboxer, and it showed. He wasn't afraid to throw kicks and get taken down, or throw kicks and get clinched, because he was able to navigate it very, very well. Rodriguez is crazy. He's, I don't know if you got a chance to check him out, Colby, but they call him RoboCop, and he looks like RoboCop. He looks like a brown RoboCop. He's got a weird build. Kind of has, I don't know if you're familiar with like synthol, like how people like pump up their biceps with this like, liquid that, kind of fills them up balloon-like. Not to say that Rodriguez does synthol or has or whatever, but he looks like it. It's super weird. His arms look interesting. But right off the bat, it was interesting to see him. He was always on the back foot. So he was always like taking a step back, kind of stretched out backwards, and like he was ready for the back step and the counter. He is from Sanford MMA, which many of you guys may know is, Kamaru Usman, Michael Chandler, Gilbert Burns, Robbie Lawler. I don't believe Usman's still there, but he's also trained with Lyoto Machida, Anderson Silva, Jacare Souza. So this guy is, has trained with some killers in the ring and, in the cage. And you could see it in his punching. He's a jiu-jitsu champion, has head low, hands high. Interesting how he has kind of like that Muay Thai, like looking straight ahead, hands on the eyebrows. Was able to throw kicks, would throw punches, kicks, switch it up. Lots of lateral movement, calm, swinging hard, like just walking through things again like RoboCop. And, the finish he had was a 1-2. It was just textbook, just left straight, right hook, and just dropped him. And, in watching his other fights, I saw one other fight where he fought a guy he was clearly, outsizing. Same thing, just strong left jab, heavy slams, heavy and high on the back. I know you're familiar with that style. When they take somebody's back, the wrestler style is to kind of keep that clinch, arms together, and like drag them over their shoulder, like, you know, dragging them forward. He did that very well, and, you know, eventually was able to stop the guy, which was Madavao in LFA. So this fight, I expect a knockout finish. It's going to be power versus precision, and I'm going to go with precision with Petrosian on this one.
Okay. And I don't really recall seeing either of these guys fight, although I'm sure I watched it because I watch all the fights and have for years now. And I was just looking at their stats as like, is there anything, you know, that stands out that would, you know, seem to give one guy an advantage? Both these guys the same height. They're like 1 year difference in age. Both guys had 4 fights in 2021. You know, Petrosian just doesn't have the UFC experience that Rodriguez does, but Rodriguez has only had 2 fights so far. So based on experience in the UFC, I'd have to say maybe there's a little bit edge to Rodriguez, but this seems like a very well matched fight. I don't see, and I guess that's why the odds are so close at plus 135 and negative 160. But both of these guys definitely seem like they've got knockout power, and I can't wait to watch this one, but I don't lean one way or the other. I feel like either guy could win by knockout in the first round.
Absolutely. Like I said, just power versus precision. It's going to be exciting to watch.
Next up, we have Arman Sarukian versus Joel Alvarez. Sarukian coming in as a negative 220 favorite versus Alvarez as a plus 180 underdog. Fern, what do you think of this fight?
So Sarukian has an interesting name. During multiple fights, people were joking about, you know, Hadouken, or it sounds very Street Fighter-like, and he is very tough. I'm going to break down his last fight against, you know, another connection we have between the undercard and the main event. He fought Makhachev, and where he had an amazing showing. Honestly, if anyone gets a chance to watch this is probably one of my favorite grappling, fighting, all-around mixed martial arts fights. After watching this, I watched this thing on loop like 3 or 4 times. Crazy grappling, crazy fighting, just transitions were non-stop. You know, he was able to take Makhachev down for the first time in his career. And watching it over and over, just seeing the little things that Makhachev does, the hand fighting, the gripping. You know, in wrestling, I know there's a move called the seatbelt. You know, here they've been calling it, what do they call it? The Dagestani handcuff. And and he's able to navigate that. So against Makhachev does a good job of controlling his hands, controlling his wrists, all these little things that he's just able to turn out of. And in all these positions where opponents have been dominated, Sarukian was able to attack. And that was on the back foot, defensively, on the ground, keeping rolling. The transitions are amazing. In one, he slipped an overhand right. Makhachev shot. He underhooks him, gets him to take him down, and then he looks to go for a Kimura. And with that Kimura, he's able to turn him and reverse him. He was mounted with one arm pinned at one point, and, you know, people thinking that Makhachev was going to finish him, but he's able to just push down, pull his legs through. That like leg hold that Khabib did against Conor and has done against other people, where they're kind of like in guard but have their legs between theirs and are just having pinned against the cage. He was put in that, but was able to slide out and then use the butterfly guard and stand up. The way he navigates grappling wise against stronger people is something that I'm very excited about this next fight. Very offensive wrestling. Again, like I mentioned, every time you thought he got taken down, then he got clinched or pinned against the cage, he turned it into something offensively. And eventually, you know, was able to get a takedown on Makhachev. While pinned against the cage, Makhachev threw a high knee. He grabbed him to go for the dump. They spread out, but he continued to just drive through and got the takedown, took his back. Makhachev, of course, great grappling, great wrestling, was able to turn out of it, get it stood back up, and they started going back out. So those are things that I'm very interested to see how he's going to be able to adjust with somebody like Alvarez. I don't know if you got a chance to watch his fights. Dude is 6'3" at 155. outrageous.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Outrageous. It's been 3 years since his last loss. He obviously uses his height very well. At 6'3", his legs let him dart in and out like in 1 or 2 steps. And, even in darting out, he takes 1 step back, throws a kick, is still attacking while on the back foot. Punches to close and kicks to keep the distance nonstop. At one point he was in the guard and was able to extend his guard, throw some elbows, throw some punches, and able to distract him and do an interesting clinch to go for an armbar. So his arms are long enough that he just, is attacking the arms. The guy's, on top of him in guard, and he grabs like an overhook and then grabs an underhook and like pins the guy's arm. The guy's throwing a punch. He pins it and he just like hugs his shoulder and then rotates to armbar from that position. It works for him because he's 6'3". I don't know how long his reach is, but I was like, what in the world? Like, he's like do you remember Kendall Grove, who was like an Ultimate Fighter from Hawaii, who was like 6'8" at middleweight, and just they always just got these weird submissions because he was just so big and lanky. At one point he was side mounted and was able to do that Dagestani handcuff, grab his opponent's back arm, slide out, roll him, and then was able to finish him with punches and elbows. Very exciting fight. It's going to be a tall striker versus a shorter all-around fighter. I think this is one of the best Fight Night cards in a long time, and I'm almost as excited about this card after watching the highlights and fights as I was about the Adesanya card. Absolutely, there's just well-rounded, very close competition in all these matches.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see Sarukian, because his wrestling, like you mentioned, I did see that fight against Makhachev, and his wrestling is off the charts. It is crazy, and it's very high paced, kind of chain wrestling where it's reversal after reversal that he's capable of doing. He doesn't just sit and lay on the ground if he gets taken down, and he goes to work if he's the one taking the other guy down. It'll be really interesting to see. You mentioned how tall Alvarez is, and I remember wrestling guys who were much taller than me, and it was so frustrating, especially if you don't train with really tall guys and you're a wrestler, because lots of stuff that would normally work against an average height person does not work against a super tall guy. So some simple things, just like taking a single leg on a guy who has that much height advantage on you, it's so strange, especially if you don't train it a lot. That feeling like this guy should be going down right now, but you just can't get the leverage because the guy's so tall and he's able to wrap himself around you. So I'm really curious to see how that tall, lanky Alvarez is going to hold up against Sarukian, because I feel like Sarukian is still the stronger grappler, the stronger wrestler. But we'll see if that height advantage, if Alvarez is able to use it and do some of that awkward stuff that really tall guys can do in wrestling.
No, definitely. You bring up a good point. Height, people don't understand the mathematics behind height. I remember one time I was training in a gym in Medford, and I was throwing head kicks. I'm a soccer player. I can kick a ball almost full field, just tagging the bob that was there. And then this lanky dude comes in and is able to just do a head kick and knock over the bob. And I'm like, I'm tagging it, not moving it, nothing. But he was just able, the angle he was hitting it was just knocking it over. And I was like, man, there really is, the physics, whatever you want to call it, the fight physics. I don't know, but I was pissed because I was like, I'm kicking harder and he's knocking it down, and I'm trying to, he's not, he can't even kick right.
Yeah, and Sarukian is 5'7", Joel Alvarez is 6'3", and so that's 8 inches difference in height. It'll make a big difference, and I'm curious if Sarukian has the right kind of training partners. I'm sure as an experienced wrestler as he is, he knows that it matters, who you're preparing against. So it'll be interesting to see this one. I can't wait to see the wrestling that goes down in this match.
Absolutely.
Next up, we have Ji Yeon Kim versus Priscilla Cachoeira. I think I said that correctly. Kim coming in as a negative 170 favorite. Priscilla coming in as a plus 145 underdog. This is another exciting fight. As far as women's fights go, I feel like this is a great matchup. Both of these fighters in their last several fights have shown that they're both willing to just kind of stand and get into a slugfest. Kim in her last fight, she is coming off of 2 losses. But in her last fight against McCann, if anything, watch the very last minute of that fight. And obviously both fighters are tired, but they're just standing and just throwing left, right, rock'em sock'em robot style. She's got a chin and she could throw. She had great volume in her last fight against McCann, which went the distance, 122 significant strike landed. And she had over 2 minutes of control, so not all that time was spent standing and was still able to get 122 significant strikes, which is like more than double some of the other fighters on this card, that like the next two that are coming up. She is a little bit slow on her striking, but I think she has really good movement in terms of being in and out movement, lots of lateral movement when she's doing her stand-up, and she has pretty strong grappling. One thing I worry about with her, though, is she's had only 1 fight in each of the last 3 years, so she's not been a super active fighter, whereas Cochiera is coming off of 2 KO victories, followed by getting subbed in her last match against Robertson by rear naked choke. She's been a little bit more active, and Priscilla's last fight against Robertson, it was really interesting, very controversial, because she ended up losing by rear naked choke, but multiple times she reached up behind her head and seemed like she was purposely gouging Jillian Robertson right in the eyeballs. The commentators were going absolutely nuts about it. I think Joe Rogan even said, Dana should consider just like literally cutting her from the UFC because it was so egregious. And Robertson, just the beast she just went right, just powered right through it and ended up getting the submission, I think with 1 second left in the round, which is crazy. So I've heard someone say, if you're not cheating, you're not trying or something. Yeah, so she definitely seems like she's willing to do anything to win, literally anything, including the most egregious foul you can possibly imagine by trying to gouge somebody's eye out.
Took it back to UFC 1 on that one.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, maybe she was have a flashback of those early UFC days where literally anything was allowed. No rules. But she does look really strong. I think she punches harder than Kim, although I do think she's quite predictable. She will throw lots of overhand rights with little setup, and she is pretty stationary on the footwork. So even though Kim's not a super fast fighter, I still think her footwork is better. And so I'm going to pick Kim in this one to win. I think she's a good grappler, moves better, and I think my prediction is Kim's going to win by submission.
Yeah, unpopular opinion or popular, I think Kim beat Molly McCann, the meatball, and I think McCann only won because it was a heavily European card. Like, there were other, British fighters fighting, and the crowd was cheering for her because there was a lot of people, representing the UK. I believe she fought on the same card that maybe Patty fought on, or something like that, because it was just a crazy amount of people cheering for her when I thought she wasn't. But she was whatever, she got the W. But Kim, I thought, in my opinion, deserved it. Stood with her, went toe-to-toe, like you mentioned, another great fighter who is being represented on this card. Like, this card is just stacked with these up-and-coming fighters that the highlights are crazy. They've been, probably like Fight of the Night or something like that. Kim, I agree with you. I believe Kim's going to win. I think hopefully by striking, because I want her to get that rematch with Meatball. I didn't like that.
Okay. It was a very close match. It was a really good one, a fun one to watch. Next up, we have Misha Cirkunov versus Wellington Turman. Misha coming in as a negative 120 favorite. Turman plus 100 underdog. Very close on the odds here. And this is going to be an interesting fight because Misha just recently went down from light heavyweight to middleweight. His debut in the division ended up being a loss. But he's definitely big for the division. Very strong guy. I watched his last fight where I was able to see he's got like a kind of a Muay Thai type stance, very flat-footed, very light on the front foot, pretty stationary, was able to walk down his opponent. He likes to put on pressure, throws lots of leg kicks, landed more leg kicks than head kick or head strikes or body strikes, had multiple takedown attempts, very heavy wrestler. Had 17 takedown attempts in his last fight. 5 of those were successful. So even though it would be considered low on the takedown accuracy, if you're taking that many takedowns, it doesn't matter. You're still going to put yourself in a good position. He was able to get 5 takedowns in that match. And one of the things that stood out to me about his wrestling that I really liked was he didn't have a ton of offensive wrestling. He really used his wrestling defensively, where he was timing his takedowns. He's waiting for his opponent to throw something, and that's when he would change levels and shoot that takedown, which I think reduces a lot of the risk when a guy's throwing a punch and you're ducking under the punch versus offensively, where you take a shot out in the open. I feel like there's a lot more chance you can catch a knee, catch a shin to the head. So a lot I liked about his wrestling. With Turman, his last fight was against Sam Alvey, who I believe you were rooting for Sam Alvey in that last fight. But Turman, also wrestling heavy, had 9 takedown attempts in that fight against Alvey. Only 2 of them were successful, though. And the interesting thing I thought was a difference is that Turman seemed to be using his wrestling much more offensively, and he also does some setups for his wrestling. The kinds of setups that I saw was where he uses this like leaping lead left hook that he'll throw, and then he'll change levels and take his shot. And I saw that leaping left hook multiple times during the match. He also uses his overhand right with no setup, which might be a problem, especially for a guy like Cirkunov, who is more of a defensive wrestler, where he takes his shots based on the strikes that his opponent is throwing. And if you're throwing an overhand right and you're throwing a leaping, lead left hook, those seem like the perfect kind of strikes to be able to change levels and take a shot. So I am expecting that Cirkunov is going to time some shots, be able to take down Turman probably multiple times throughout the match. And I'm picking Cirkunov to win. I don't think that Turman has enough striking diversity or enough setups to be able to deal with the wrestling that Cirkunov is going to bring to the match. I think Cirkunov's going to time a takedown. He's going to get ground and pound or possibly even a submission.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I think, seeing Thurman's last fight, Alvey against Alvey, where he was winning, and then, the eye pokes kind of made it close. He wasn't out wrestling Sam. It was pretty close in the clinch. It was pretty even. With somebody who has legitimate wrestling, abilities and is, larger in size and physically strong, I think it's possible that he's gonna get manhandled by his opponent this fight. So Cirkunov just looks like a beast. I don't know what he's eating. I don't know I don't want to assume that he's taking things, but when people are just that ripped, you're just like, man, how?
He's coming down from light heavyweight, so he's got to do some body transformation, and to go down a division, he's got to have no body fat. So yeah, he looks pretty shredded, and he looks pretty big, and he looks pretty powerful, and yeah, that's why I think also going to play to his favor, especially when it comes to wrestling. Okay, for the main event now, Islam Makhachev versus Bobby Green. Makhachev coming in as a huge favorite, negative 800 versus Bobby Green as a plus 550 underdog. This is insane. This is getting into like Shevchenko odds territory or Amanda Nunes odds territory.
Or like Anderson Silva.
Of negative 800. Very, very rarely do you see those kinds of odds. Especially for a main event, favoring one fighter. So, go ahead and just let's start off. Give me your thoughts on the main event here.
Main event, I'm very excited about. I like that it's at catchweight, given that Green just competed not too long ago. I don't know if you guys have seen any of the interviews he has on social media. He likes to pig out after he wins, after his fight. So he apparently was already having to cut 25 pounds to even make the catchweight. So wow. I know that people, who cut weight and stuff like that. I know there's a science to it. I know there's a technique to it. When, 20 plus pounds are mentioned, I'm like, whoa, like that is, you are a big guy for the weight division. And I am excited to see how that plays into, with Makhachev, because Bobby Green likes to keep his hands down, likes to strike on the back foot. With Makhachev and his amazing wrestling, Dagestani style, those low hands will probably let Bobby Green throw strikes and have the underhooks ready for a takedown defense, for a sprawl. The back movement, though, might be to his detriment, as Makhachev can easily, with the trip or something like that, get him off balance and finish his drive through for a takedown. This is crazy. This is going to be entertaining. This is like, we talk about sideshow fights. This is kind of a sideshow fight. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't see what strategy Bobby Green could possibly deploy to give him a chance here. Makhachev is not just one of the best wrestlers, maybe ever in the UFC. He's, he trains with Khabib. He has a similar style as Khabib, and his wrestling has been as dominant, I feel like, as Khabib's. But he can also strike. He's got some knockouts on his record. And he's actually got a first round knockout against Gleison Tebow. If you remember, that was like probably one of the closest matches that Khabib had in the UFC, was against Tebow.
Yeah, where he got taken down by Tebow, right?
Smoked him. Well, I'm not sure if he took him down. I just remember Khabib, I don't know how many shots Khabib had on Tebow in that match. It had to have been like a dozen, and he just could not take down Tebow, so he had to strike with him. And Khabib's striking, I feel like, is not at the same level as Makhachev. I feel like Makhachev's an even better striker than Khabib, and he has super dominant wrestling. So you're talking about with Bobby Green having his hands down, it may help him to get the underhooks to defend the wrestling, but that's also what's possibly going to set him up to get knocked out, because Makhachev, he'll apply that wrestling pressure, and as soon as you're expecting that wrestling pressure, your hands go down, and that's where the overhand right comes in. And he's got multiple TKOs and KOs, although I feel like he almost wants to get submissions over KOs just to like kind of pay homage to his teams who loves wrestling so much and loves Sambo so much. It's almost like a sin to knock somebody out, versus like submitting them. So I don't know what Bobby Green could possibly mount against Makhachev. I feel like Makhachev is just going to smash Bobby Green. I don't think it's going to be close.
Yeah, the weight cut. Just Makhachev watching that Sarukian fight, how they went three rounds nonstop, fast paced, so many strikes. Again, you mentioned his striking in that fight. Sarukian took head kicks, was worried about the shot, then got caught with some punches. Definitely good point in bringing up Makhachev striking. I focus on his wrestling because it's beautiful to watch. Just his hands are doing things, his legs are doing things. It's not just how people call like lay and pray or hugging him. Like, you watch them, it's offensive wrestling, like physical wrestling. He's hitting you, he's wrapping you up, he's turning you. Like, it's beautiful to watch. And definitely those Dagestani guys have made me a fan of wrestling more and more. The cardio it takes with it. I'm worried Bobby Green, you shouldn't have said you were cutting 25 pounds. I don't know, like maybe after the fight and been like, hey, I had to cut 25 pounds, but kind of making it known that he's having to do that. And, it's great testament to his commitment and being like, I'm crazy. But crazy in there against somebody who is precise and methodical and so well conditioned and like has trained for years. I don't know. Khabib swam with trained with bears and swims upstream, rivers, and wonder what this guy's story is gonna be when it comes out. I don't know. He was there.
I can't wait to see the promos for the fight and learn more about this guy's background. Yeah, how is he trained? And just keep in mind his last fight was a first round win over Dan Hooker, yeah. Where it was absolutely dominant. There was no threat at all from Dan Hooker. Before that, it was Thiago Moses, who's also a great wrestler. Drew Dober, who's also a great wrestler. Like you already mentioned, Sarukian, who's a super great wrestler. Gleason Tebow, who Khabib spent multiple rounds, unable to really take him down and hold him down. So I feel like this one's going to be over quick, but I'm going to make a prediction here. His last 3 wins were by submission, and I think that's what Bobby Green is going to be expecting and training for, is that wrestling. I feel like he's going to threaten the wrestling, and I feel like he is going to knock out Bobby Green round 1. What do you think?
Round 1 knockout. I think he's just going to beat him up the whole fight, and Bobby Green's going to look lumped up and then going to go eat afterwards. I haven't seen Bobby Green. I don't think I've seen him get knocked out, or like I've seen him get hit, rocked, but he just might be too big to stop, depending on how well he rehydrates. But yeah, it's victory for Makhachev. I think he's going to beat him up the whole time. You think he's just going to be like, done, get out of here, go home, eat.
Yeah, well, I think he wants to make a statement because this is going to be his 10th win in a row, and I don't know, is he even ranked? Yeah, he is ranked, right? What is he ranked? Oh, I don't even have it in front of me what the ranking is, but he's shooting for a title fight, and he knows because he's getting lots of advice from Khabib about what is the path towards getting that title fight. And it's not just about getting wins. We know from Colby Covington's story, winning sometimes isn't enough. You've got to really make a statement with your win. So I feel like he's not going to play it safe. I feel like he's going to be very confident coming into the fight, and he's going to want to show that he's on a different level. I think he said that actually in one of his recent interviews, that he wants to show in this fight that Bobby Green is not on his level and that he is wanting to get lined up for a title fight.
Yeah, they have him on UFC.com as 4th behind Beneil Dariush, who he was supposed to fight. Bobby Green's the late replacement for. And then Poirier at 2, Gaethje at 1, and you have the champ, Charles Oliveira. And it's great because I think he matches well against all those guys. I'd love to see him fight any of those. And so after this fight, I hope Dariush heals, recovers quickly, but put him in against Gaethje, put him in against even Chandler. I want to see, I want to see him fight somebody with the foundation of wrestling and that can strike. And Gaethje, Chandler against Makhachev would be great fights to watch.
Yeah, and it's such a stacked division. Like I said, just getting the win isn't going to be enough when you've got the guys you just listed off in front of you. How are you going to make that case to the champ? You've got to do something, I feel like, spectacular to show, hey, I'm the guy who has a chance of beating the champ. And I hope he does call out for a title fight. I would like to see him against Gaethje or one of these other guys, but I feel like he is ready for a title fight. And I wish this really weren't against Bobby Green, but against one of the top 5 guys.
Yeah.
But, we'll see. I think it's going to be a smash fest.
The WWE entertainment part of my brain is like, watch him beat Bobby Green, and they're like, title shot, Makhachev. But wait, out of nowhere, Conor McGregor. And continue. Khabib in his corner against Conor. I could. I'm always like in the back of my mind, especially with 155. Like, he's coming. That train's never late. Like, he's gonna jump in somewhere. He's just sitting on the sideline waiting, and with the win right there, I hate to say it, I could see him being like, oh, you know, Conor against Makhachev, next person who fights for the title, and me be like, no. Like, yeah. There's always the entertainment value you gotta sell, you know. But I know with 155, Conor's always in the background somewhere. Just chilling in the rafters.
To see his, can't wait to see his tweets after this one.
And you know what's going to happen. It's going to be some insulting, derogatory, just hopefully, I don't know. He needs to relax. He'll probably take a video of him, like, pacing in front of the TV again. Like,
All right, well, this is going to be a fun card. Can't wait to see it.
Thanks again for joining us. Again, like, follow on all social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, our website, bamfightclub.com. Love the support. We are getting up there. It's crazy to see the reach that we're getting. Buenos Aires, I'm going to shout you out. For some reason, Argentina is showing us a bunch of love and a bunch of traffic. I don't know what's going on over there, but Buenos Aires is consistently, like, at the top. So, yeah. But hopefully we keep reaching more and more of you guys, and tell a friend. Hopefully this is funny, this is entertaining. This is just two guys talking MMA and other combat sports, and thank you for joining us on this trip voyage. Colby, thanks for your support. Hopefully we're funny, entertaining, engaging, and like and share.
Smash the like button. Smash the sub button. And see ya.
See ya.